The following podcast is a Dear Media production.
Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Happy Monday. Hope you're doing well. I am really excited about this episode because we now have another Bachelor alum coming on. I think what you're going to find interesting about this episode is that we do a where were you then, where are you now type interview. So this interview is with Nick Viall. Nick has been on literally every show other than Winter Games. But it's very interesting to hear the career strategy, what happens in between shows, how much money Nick had to the dollar left in his account when he decided to move to LA. Why did you even move to LA, Nick? We get into it. He explains everything and where he was then and where he is now. This will be a two-part series. The first part is really laying down the foundation of where he was then and why he did what he did. And what's fascinating is he almost didn't go back to paradise. Think about how different his life would be. So you're going to hear some wild career stories, some very interesting financial facts from Nick, and you're probably going to hear a side or story from him you haven't heard yet. Where was he then? Where is he now? Part 1 is this week. Part 2 will be next week. Now let's ring in the bell with Nick Viall. Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. If you're part of Bachelor Nation, you'll definitely know who our guest is today, the one and only Nick Viall. Nick has been involved with the Bachelor Nation since 2014. He was a finalist on Andy Dorfman's season, a runner-up on Caitlin's season, the next year in 2015. Yes, that's my fiance. What a fucking world, huh? He then went on to Paradise in 2016, finally became the Bachelor in 17. Many people love Nick, but some people weren't the biggest fans of Nick, which most importantly meant plenty of viewers for the network. And of course, most importantly in this world, monster ratings. After The Bachelor, he then competed on Dancing with the Stars. In 2018, he and his sister started Natural Habits Essential Oils. He is the host of a very successful podcast, The Viall Files, and much more. A wild resume and career, and I can't wait to dive into it with you today. Nick, thank you so much for coming out and being here today.
Good to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me.
It's a beautiful thing. And we're live in person for everyone out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow, Caitlin is announcing, or actually tonight, she's announcing that she'll be on Dancing with the Stars, going on the tour. And I said, you know what? What would be better than digging up the resume, going to one of her exes, which, by the way, everyone should know, we are friends. We spent Thanksgiving together.
Yeah.
I mean, so we go back. We're buddies, and life is good. But we're here to talk business.
Exes is such a weird, strong word in this world, though. Don't you think?
I think so.
Like, do you consider Becca Kufrin an ex?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. Do you consider? All right, who in the world do? And this we're going a little off topic, which I kind of like. But who do you consider an ex?
From Bachelor world?
Yeah.
Vanessa for sure.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
And then if I were to like stat rank it,
Yeah.
I think number 2 would be Jen Saviano, just because we had a relationship outside of the show a little bit before Paradise and a little bit after Paradise.
Okay.
So they're like we talked and communicated and hung out in the real world.
Gotcha.
And that was honestly would probably be the only 2 in my mind. Certainly not Andy, because I only knew her like in that Bachelor world.
Sure.
Caitlin's was more of like prior to the show, kind of
Right.
like a silly like love affair in a sense that was all very virtual. It was part, and so I definitely don't consider Caitlin and Andy exes in a traditional sense. Like they are people who, and I'm sure maybe you feel the same way about Becca Kufrin, but like certainly memorable moments.
Sure.
And they have like certainly a place in like my mind in terms of like significant things I'll remember when my life flashes before my eyes.
Sure.
But like in the traditional like ex, no,
Yeah, like if you're at a conversation with a good friend at dinner and you're talking about exes, I agree with you. Becca Kufrin for me like would never come up in conversation ever. And that's kind of like the interesting thing about this world, the reality versus like actually living in the Bachelor world. And you've lived in this Bachelor world. I mean, it's been 7 years now, right? I mean, so it started 2014.
I guess, yeah.
And everything, is it a fair assumption to say that from 2014 to 2021, making the decision to go on the show, your life has changed in every which way?
No, yeah, sure. I mean, it didn't at first. After I first went on Andy season, I just went right back to my life before I went on Andy season.
Yeah.
So between Andy and Caitlin's season, I had every plan, and I did go back. I went back to work. I just worked. My life in between Andy and Caitlin's season was exactly like my life before I went on the show. In the world, like the world was Bachelor world, and the opportunities that presented themselves after the show were very different than what they were now. Like, you know, but I didn't do bar appearances. I didn't do anything like that. I didn't monetize the experience at all. I mean, I think the first dollar I ever made as a result of going on the show was like 3 or 4 months after Caitlin's season. And it was for, what's the sunglasses that were really... My first sponsored post was...
I'm trying to think which ones they might have.
The sunglasses that really like took off.
Diff Eyewear.
Diff Eyewear.
That was it, huh?
Diff. It was a Diff Eyewear.
I love that.
Instagram post.
All right, so that's the first dollar you made. Now, I pulled up a picture of you, Nick, and because I'm looking at your resume, I'm doing the research. I saw that in a couple articles you said that you were always the kind of guy that was working, right? You said at a young age you'd be working for $2 an hour in the neighborhood. I saw that you were a business manager at your school newspaper. You worked at construction in college. You even worked at a grocery store in high school as an assistant produce manager. And so another thing I was looking at was I couldn't figure out, are you a double major in accounting and supply, or are you a major in business administration?
No, double major in accounting and supply chain management, which is one of those like double majors. Like you had to take like 15 more credits in as a double major.
Sure. Okay.
Because a lot of overlap.
Yeah, of course. It was an efficient double major, but it was a double major nonetheless. And the point is...
From the School of Business, though.
From the School of Business. Get that in there, you know. Like pump the resume out. Yeah. Not a big deal. But I'm thinking about this interview. I'm looking at you, Nick, and I'm looking at this picture. And I'm showing the picture of Nick when he first went on Andy's season. And I'm saying this guy, double major accounting and supply chain management, is not... I mean, the guy in front of me, the way you look, the tattoos... the swag you got going, everything, it just seems like two different people. And what I want to know is, did you ever expect at this time period in your life that you would get into entertainment and media and be doing it successfully for 7 years?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, like that picture has been kind of a blessing and a curse. I've you know, it's been good for like engagement when you do like a side by side of like,
before
like,
I glow up,
you know, like what you want, you know, or like a meme where it's just like what you buy online versus what you expect, you know, kind of shit like that. It's been like a very giving gift, but I think there's, again, my persona, if you want to call it that, versus reality. I think that picture, or like my character on the show, or how I was portrayed on Andy and Caitlin's season a little bit, makes it seem like I've made this like drastic shift of like who I was as a person.
Yeah.
Like that's just a really bad photo.
Okay,
you know,
that's
like
fair.
I wish I could be like, oh yeah, I really like had this glow up, but like I remember I recently got tattoos. It's something I've always wanted to do. I mean, I guess to answer your question, and I think a lot. I don't know how you were, but like there were always times where I thought to myself when I was, you know, working in corporate America, where it just felt like this can't be it for me, you know, like
100%.
I mean, like I felt like I like what I do. I feel fortunate to have the job and career that I have, but like, is this it? Is this the most exciting my life's going to be? And so I don't want to sound all like, oh, I thought I always knew I'd, you know, do stuff like this. But I think there was a part of me that had that kind of interest in that stuff. I joke about, like, not joke. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist for Disney. I was like artistic, and I got away from that side as I focused on athletics and focused on business.
Sure.
And it's been fun to tap into that in these past few years, like living in LA, to tap into kind of a more creative side. I think social media in general makes that easier for everyone. I think, especially with TikTok, like anyone can be a creator, you know, the access and that people have to exercising their kind of creative brains is like never before, which I think is exciting for everyone. So like most people are, I think you have kind of different sides to who you are. And I think, there's a lot of cons of social media, but I think a positive has been that ability for people to not be, it's just like you get a job and you get a career and you're like, this is just who I am. And maybe you have a hobby or two, but I think people can now develop different, muscles and different talents.
For sure.
And I think, I guess, in a way, there was a part of me that I don't feel like, as crazy as my life shifted, or it was, in the longest possible winded answer, like I'm not like blown away. Yeah. But at the same time, it certainly wasn't like, how do I move to LA and move to Hollywood? I mean, when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, like the idea of I never would imagine I'd live in LA.
Yeah. No, I get that.
It's a little bit of both.
And you bring up a lot of good points. I see that picture and then I see you and I know the world that I've been exposed to from it. And to me, I think about my corporate America days. I think the problem is that the corporate America culture, at least for me, maybe for you too, is it limits you to such a box. Because if you get outside of that box, then you're not fitting the identity or kind of what they want to shape you as. And I think in our world, you now have so much ability to create your own, pursue entrepreneurship. You could have a sleeve of tattoos and no boss is going to make a passive aggressive comment. You could do what you want the way you want, and your living, I think, is true to you as you possibly could, or at least I am in the world that I talk different, I act different. I don't have to put my banker meeting voice on. I could just be what I want to be the way I want to be, as opposed to how the corporate America structure wants me to be. But for you, you were tell me if I'm wrong here, but you were 33 when you ended up going on the show. So what were you doing at that point in your life, and what made you actually say, fuck it, I'm going to go. I'm going to take this shot?
I worked for Salesforce, which is a great company, and I still have friends who work there. My brother works there now. I got him a job there.
Nice.
Indirectly. I mean, he got himself a job there, but... and yeah, I really quite liked it. Interestingly enough, like up until that point, I was an accounting major, and I did that my first 2 years and I hated it. And then I transitioned to sales, and I worked my way up through, I first started selling cell phones and then did B2B sales for telecommunications, and then did medical equipment, and then did tech. And, for a lot of people would consider tech in terms of like, if you're going to do sales, it's a great thing to sell. Something that's expensive, constantly changing, innovative, things like that. It's exciting.
Sure.
And so from a corporate standpoint, what was kind of interesting is that I finally felt like I made it.
Yeah.
Selling in tech was something I had always wanted to do, and it wasn't easy to get into. There were kind of different steps I had to take to get into that space. And then I did, and I had a lot of early success at Salesforce. I really liked my team. I liked the people I worked with. It was really, so I was like, this is great. And then the bachelor opportunity showed up. And at first, it was my only reason of saying yes to the casting process is I had never been to LA ever. And I thought, trip. I was just like, oh, what a cool way to go to LA, and it was more like what I was fascinated with what would the casting process be like for a show like this. So my mindset was, I'm just going to go through the casting process just for fun, just to see what it's like, and then I'll just not do it. Yeah. And then as I went through the casting process, it was made pretty clear to me that they were interested in me. And so then, your curiosity peaks. And then I started talking to people I trusted at work. To my surprise, they were incredibly supportive. And yeah, if it weren't for them saying, go do this and we'll always have you back, I probably wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have quit my job.
Okay. So if you had to quit your job, you wouldn't have. At this point, anybody that's interested and they hear you talk about the selling technology, your software sales, or being an account executive and the way you moved up within Salesforce, when you leave your job at this point around 33, you said it was a career moving in the right direction. Around high level, how much you making?
At Salesforce?
Yeah.
About 150,000 at the time.
Okay, so 150,000. And if they told you, Nick, you go, you're fired, you're not going. This whole world never opens up.
Yeah. I would definitely not have gone.
Okay, so that's wild. And so they did support you going, which is incredible.
Yeah.
At what point did you end up saying the future of what I'm forecasting for my business, like income and projections, can support or be greater than what I'm receiving at Salesforce, so I'm going to leave Salesforce?
Yeah, it wasn't that mathematical.
But you're an analytical guy.
I am.
Very
but
analytical.
this experience made me realize certain things about myself, because I never thought of myself. I thought of myself as somewhat more risk averse rather than risk taking.
Okay.
If you would have asked me that, I would have said I'm more risk averse. And I think in a lot of ways I am. I'm very careful. I'm very thoughtful with my choices. I look at pros and cons. I assess risk in my mind. I'm not like an actuary or anything like that. But obviously what I learn, and I guess it just depends on where I am risky. Mm-hmm. I think I take a calculated risk in the sense that I think something I live by, continue to live by, and what has been constant is when I'm faced with a challenge, I always bet on myself.
Okay.
And I look at, all right, what are the pros and cons? What's the worst case, whatever that is?
Sure.
If this really goes really bad, what does that look like?
Yeah. If I fall on my face, what's the result?
If this goes really good, what does this look like? And if the unknown variable is mostly how I handle adversity or what I do with certain opportunities, then I'm going to do the more risky thing, because if the variable is me and my choices, then I'm going to bet on myself to make the right choices, and I'm going to bet on myself to adapt. I'm going to bet on myself to overcome adversity. Mm-hmm. When faced with those.
One thing Nick has mentioned is his financial position when he moved out to LA. I want you to think about your financial position. What can you do in 2022 to put yourself in a better position? I always say, start with two things: debt and expenses. So let's talk about expenses. Think about the pandemic. How many subscription services did you sign up for? I think about every streaming service. I mean, literally Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, like you name it, I have it. It's time for me to do some homework too and reevaluate why I have those services and which ones I'm using. And the easiest way for me to do that is Truebill. It's a new app that'll help you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need. Subscriptions aren't bad. They're not bad at all. But if you're not using them, or it's just not bringing any value to your life, you could save a lot of money. And on average, people save up to $700. I almost said 200. Correct me. On average, people are saving up to $720 a year with Truebill. So go right now, Truebill.com/secrets. Literally, going into 2022, it could save you thousands of dollars a year. Truebill.com/secrets. All right, a lot of moving to LA talk here, but let's talk about the holiday season. When I think about the holiday season, I think about winter in Buffalo, New York. And there's just nothing better than putting on your slippers, maybe a robe if that's your thing, and getting a nice, fresh cup of coffee. If you're someone who loves coffee, and maybe your at-home coffee just isn't meeting your expectations, not only do I have a free option for you, I have an unbelievable option. It's called Trade Coffee. So essentially, Trade will match you to coffees that you love from over 400 different craft coffees they have. And then what they'll do is they'll send you a freshly roasted bag as often as you would like. So never again, especially on a cold winter day, will you wake up without the best coffee you can imagine. And the best part is they will guarantee that you'll love your first match. But on the off chance you don't, they'll replace it for a different bag for free. Speaking of free, for our listeners, right now, Trade is offering your first bag free and $5 off your bundle at checkout. To get yours, go to drinktrade.com/secrets and use promo code SECRETS. Take the quiz to start your journey to the perfect cup of coffee. That's drinktrade.com/secrets, promo code SECRETS for your first bag free, $5 off your bundle. And this holiday season, it is a perfect gift to give. Check it out.
So when I went and left for Caitlin's season, and I was just like, I just kind of leveled with them. Like,
did they support you again to go on another season?
Yeah. So the first time they were just like super chill and cool, like, hey man, you should totally go. Like, we'll take you back. You know, at the time, and Salesforce, I'm guessing, is still that to this day. But when I worked there, they had been around for a while, but relative to the industry, they were still considered. They had kind of startup mode, so they were. Their focus was growing. They were always hiring. So they were just like, listen, you're President's Club. We're hiring all the time. Yeah. Are we going to hire someone who's proven to be successful and we like working with?
Why would they not?
Or are we going to hire someone we don't? So like, whether you go on leave or you quit, like, we're going to hire you back.
No liability in them rehiring.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, it makes sense. I'm like, that makes me feel good. So I took the leave and I came right back. And then the second time, I was just like, I'm just going to level with you. I know this is super crazy and weird, but like, I was talking to this chick and I feel like, I don't know, man. Like, and they're like, all right, again, we want to support you and just promise us that if you don't come back, unless you are done doing whatever this is. If you come back again, be committed to this job. And I said, that's fair.
One more shot.
And so after, after Caitlin and my journey with Caitlin ended, I definitely was just like, I'm not going back right away. So I took the summer and kind of this, partly it was like, I think my mental health wasn't super awesome after Andy's season. So like, I just needed to kind of decompress. And so I was like, if nothing else, I'm just going to decompress. And then I got signed by an agent, which I didn't, it was like commercial agent / modeling. I didn't know what that meant, at the time. Like I didn't know that there's like an agent for everything or a manager and things like that. But I was like, I got an agent, and so, and a lot of things that happened were very fortuitous. And then I had this so I signed by an agent and the agent's like, you should move to LA. I was like, And then I met one of my buddies now who I didn't know very well at the time, but he's like, I have a house, so you can like, cool. I have a room for you. And I had a condo in Chicago. And so I kind of packed a couple suitcases and I was like, well, I'll stay here for a couple months. And I still kept in close communication with Salesforce. I was still technically on leave. Okay. And I was like ready to come back because I still was very like, I don't want to lose this opportunity. But they're just like, just fucking go, man. Like, what's the worst just go for a year, give it a shot. Like, what's the worst that happens? We'll hire you back.
That's
wild. And I was like, all right, fuck it. So I thought to myself, and again, because the way you asked the question was like, I had no fucking clue what I was going to do.
Right.
When I think back about where I am today and what I have going on and like what I just moved. I had no income. I had no plan. It wasn't like nowadays where you have this playbook. I think I had like 110,000 followers. There wasn't anything no one knew what a swipe up was.
How about financially you have some type of amount that you said, okay,
I had
X amount of month salary, $100,000.
I think I had like $50,000 in my liquid cash in my savings. I had a 401k plan that I certainly like, if I needed a case of emergency, that was there, but I never wanted to touch that.
Sure.
But in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't want to touch this, but I guess it is there. Yeah. So I had about $50,000 in cash that I was living off of.
Interesting.
So, and again, like I hadn't made, at this point, I hadn't made a dime from my bachelor experience. So I just kind of moved to LA and what I did know is that like I had myself, my skills. I treated moving to LA like a job, I told myself, well, I have a sales background. And so now my job is to sell myself. And so I took improv classes. I did the work. I networked. I recognized that being on the show gave me access. I think understanding the difference between access and credibility is important. Yeah. The show gives you access. The show does not give you credibility.
Right. That's for sure.
It's important to know the difference.
That's 100% accurate.
But access gives you an opportunity to build credibility for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you get in the room with certain people, and then now you have an opportunity to have them get to know who you are, not who they might think you might be.
Sure.
I just kind of figured it out. You know, there's definitely a lot of luck involved, but you know, there's that, you know, luck is when, you know, opportunity and preparation, blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah, things definitely had to work out. It wasn't when I eventually quit Salesforce.
Yep. When was the actual time
I moved out. I think it was like December. So like it was like December of 2000. I don't know what year it was. So like it was
in between Paradise and Caitlin season.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting though that Salesforce was the one pushing you to go. So when I went on Becca's season, company supported me. When I got back and then was asked to go on Paradise, company said, you go on Paradise, you're gone.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the driving factors that eventually led me to not go onto Paradise. But at this point, so when you go, like, I'm just trying to understand. I know you bet on yourself, but you go on season 1 of The Bachelorette, you go on season 2. One thing we've heard from a lot of people in the reality TV space is once they go on one show, the next show, they now have a built-in personality, they have a following, they have momentum. Like, are you compensated at all for that time period going back on Caitlin's season?
No.
Okay. So the first
I
time
think they bought me like a suit or some shit.
Okay.
It was like they're like, we can't pay you because like precedent and bullshit like that.
Yeah.
I think I got a little bit, but it was minimal, and it was essentially like they bought me a suit. Or maybe 2 or something like that. But it was nothing.
Okay. Interesting. But between the
for Caitlin's season.
For Caitlin's season. So between Caitlin's season and then going on Paradise, you move to LA, you take the shot. You got $50,000 in a dream. What did you do in that time? And I know you took improv classes, you created opportunity. What did you do within that time period before Paradise to monetize? Because it wasn't social media in that world in 2015, 16 was fucking not what it is today.
I didn't make any money. I didn't make a dime.
In that time period, you weren't making any money?
I think I did one diff ad.
And what is that diff ad pay
I did one. I think I made like $1,200.
It's so crazy how much it's changed.
It's changed, and then I think nuts. I did one bar appearance in Calgary, which some of the Bachelor guys did. I think Crystals did, and I hated every moment of it.
I did,
and that
too.
that was full off of like. I was like, I need some fucking money.
Sure.
And
they paid cash for that too, right? Man, it was like cash. And
I just like, I hated it. I hated doing shit like that.
Yeah.
And so I did that, but there were plenty of moments in that time where I was like on the fence. I was still I left Salesforce, but I was keeping tabs. I was like keeping my relationships. I was checking in. During St. Patrick's Day that following year, before Paradise, I went home to Chicago and hung out with some friends, and I was like, it's fucking good to be home. It's good to see my friends. But then I was like, you know, because you were, you know, Salesforce and Google was in Chicago. There's a lot of swapping positions.
Of course.
And I will say, when I went back to Chicago that weekend, it was good to be back, but then I was talking to a hiring manager at Google who was best friends with a friend of mine, but also like an executive at Salesforce. Yeah. And I thought to myself, yeah, I'm good. I can totally get a job if I need a job. Like, cause he was like, this guy was essentially like offering me a job at Google, you know, selling emails basically.
Yeah.
But hey, it's a sales job at Google.
Exactly.
And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like it just kind of gave me the confidence that I don't know if this is going to work out what I'm doing, because there was a lot of like, at that point, for a lot of days, I was just kind of waking up and I wanted to do something. I wanted to feel busy, but I don't know what the fuck to do, you know? Like,
so what did you, I mean, improv classes, anything else?
I started taking acting classes, improv classes. Again, I was like trying to set up meetings and take meetings. And I was just hustling, and I was trying to network. I was just trying to get to know the lay of the land.
So was going to Paradise then, getting to know the lay of the land, not really booking anything other than diff eyewear for the 1200, and then going on Paradise, was when they offered you that Paradise role, was there, I mean, you had to undoubtedly be like, of course I'm in.
No, because when I got to LA and I got, you know, signed by this agent, I was in LA for like a month. And I was coming off of Caitlin's season. So like, I was, my notoriety was, I guess, at a high,
relevant.
right?
People felt bad. You were crying.
Yeah.
No,
It was my best moment when Caitlin broke out with me. And then there was a show on E called Famously Single that they were starting.
Okay.
And I was they wanted me bad.
Got it.
2-time runner-up on The Bachelorette. My agent was like, they want you bad. You're under contract, but like, my agent was saying like, I don't know, some high up at NBC would like be willing to kind of like talk to whoever, like the Mike Fleises of the world, whatever. And I think they were offering me like $60,000, $70,000 to do it or something like that.
Okay.
My agent really wanted me to do it, but I just thought to myself, I didn't move to LA just to be on TV.
Okay.
$60,000 would help me out right now, big time.
Sure.
But I was thinking big picture. I left a job making $150,000 a year, and it was a job there, and that was the floor. Like I was still relatively entry level. Like the ceiling for where I was planning on, where I thought I could move up to at Salesforce was like making $500,000 a year.
And real quick, if you're with the bonuses, let's say you average out $300K, and then you add, I don't know, benefits that you monetize that, say $350. For anyone listening here, like that's $350K for a year. Do 3 years, do 4 years. You're at 1.3 million. So
stock options,
every day you're not working for them, it's costing you.
Yeah.
Right? So significantly.
Yeah. So my mindset was, is this opportunity of going on Famously Single going to help me or hurt me long term? And I just thought Famously Single and trying to capitalize on being some sort of reality TV reject is like, I didn't move to LA to do that.
Got it.
Famously, it was a new show. It was about being broken up with. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, or hosting or acting, but I was like, I didn't quit my job to just do this type of shit.
Okay.
So like, no, like I said no to it. And, my agent was all mad at me, but I was just like, I thought to myself, if I did this show, I might as well just go back to work now and make money.
It's a wild move. Sitting in LA for a year, not making much, getting offered a whole show at E and turning it down. That's crazy.
And they ended up casting Josh Murray instead.
Interesting.
And then I was like, I made the right call.
Are you trying to say Josh Murray's a reality TV reject?
We all are, Jason.
I know. Because I almost self-deprecate. I was like, well, you didn't want to be one, but
we are. And what I wasn't trying to do is monetize that.
Sure.
And whatever. If someone did it, for me, it just wasn't the right call. And for me, the benefit of quitting Salesforce, I was giving up something, right? Sure. And so for me, every decision I made, I had to compare it to like, well, is doing this going to help me like grow, be more successful? Is it going to help me gain credibility? Because again, I already have the access. I don't have the credibility. So like, is going on Famously Single going to give me more credibility or less? Because I don't need more access.
Yeah.
I could, I was taking acting classes and, in the acting world, it was kind of a scam. And I think they've kind of closed the loophole, but like young casting directors had these like seminars that you'd pay like $300 to go to like network with casting directors.
Sure.
And you're meeting low level casting directors and you're essentially like showing up to this like seminar to give them your quote unquote acting resume.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a scam for casting directors to make a little extra coin.
Yeah.
And I went to my first acting class and I was referred to my first acting class to a casting director at NBC who is still a friend of mine.
Okay.
And I was in that room and they were a Bachelor fan. They took a general meeting with me because I was a Bachelor fan. Sure. I was at a bar and her secretary saw me and said, hey, have you ever thought of acting? My boss wants to meet you. I knew that she wasn't interested in casting me in a show, that she probably was a Bachelor fan. But from that moment on, she befriended me because I took that meeting, I answered her questions, but then I asked for advice and career advice. I didn't ask for a role. I asked for like, what work can I do? And she kind of took me under a wing and she set me up with another general meeting. My point of saying all this is like, here I am at this acting class with a bunch of people who've on their second, third, fourth acting class school, right? Yep. And they're all like, what casting director seminars have you gone to? And I'm like, I just took a meeting with like the executive at NBC, and you know what I'm saying? I had the access.
Sure.
And so that's what I mean. Like every decision I made was like, is this going to give me more access or not? So anyways, fast forward to Paradise. The reason why you're like, oh, was that a sure thing? Because me saying yes to Paradise contradicted my decision-making up into that point.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so I was really reluctant, but at the same time, at least I had a relationship with the show. I knew like some of the producers that I did trust, despite them being producers. And instead, it was still the Bachelor franchise on ABC, not Famously Single, a show that didn't even exist on E, So it was like network television versus cable, et cetera, et cetera. My friends were going, so my reason for saying yes was not because it was going to give me more credibility or more access. At that point, I definitely like the funds were getting low.
Yeah.
I was definitely like, and I was really close to like moving back. It was definitely like, if I didn't say yes to Paradise, I was going to go back to work.
Wow.
I had a bunch of friends going on Paradise, and they were all like friends like Jared and Tanner who had gone the year before, and they're like, dude, it's fun.
Yeah, just go.
It's not the same.
Yeah,
it's fun. And finally I just kind of said, fuck it. And one of the producers who just said, you're just going to have to trust me. And I said, I guess, fuck it. I guess I'll just trust you. And I went.
It's interesting talking to Nick about his earlier life, career trajectory, some of the financial moves he made, and even his financial positions. But now it's time to think about your specific early decisions, your early investments. Or maybe I'm saying that and you're like, I'm not on it. I didn't really make any investments early. That's because it's difficult and confusing to start investing. It's not easy. There's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of knowledge barriers, understanding, and just the whole mental block of getting going. But you got to get on it, and you got to get on it now, especially with inflation moving the way it is. So there are so many tools out there, and there's one tool I want you to keep in mind. It's public.com. Not only can you invest on public.com, but it's huge on the learning experience, on stocks, ETFs, or crypto. I mean, Public will make it easy to learn and invest. And the biggest thing is, with investing, people don't want to feel stupid because they don't know. But the whole foundation of Public is built on community. So you can learn from other investors or talk to other early investors. So start investing right now with as little as $1, and you'll get a free slice of stock up to $50 when you join public.com today. Visit public.com/trading secrets to download the app and sign up using code trading secrets. That's public.com/trading secrets and code trading secrets. A lot of the conversation with Nick is going down memory lane. How about for you though? When you think about memory lane, what do you think about? Maybe it's not Bachelor in Paradise moments or being the Bachelor or being on Dancing with the Stars. But maybe there are some amazing stories in your life that you wish you had preserved. There is a company that will help you do that now called Storyworth. They're an online service that helps you and your loved ones preserve precious moments and stories for years to come. It's literally, you think about spending a lot of money on a gift or something sentimental, this will hit your sentimental bucket every day. So what happens is every week, Storyworth will email your relatives or friends a thought-provoking question of your choice from a vast pool of different options. And then each unique prompt for their answers will be captured in the story. And after 1 year, Storyworth will compile all your loved ones' stories, including photos, and put them in this beautiful keepsake book that you will have forever. It is the sentimental gift that'll have your friends or your family saying like, whoa, this is unbelievable during the holiday season. So I'm giving those. I love this personal gift, and you could do the same. Go to storyworth.com/secrets and save $10 on your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/secrets to save $10 on your first purchase. I'm just trying to think of the differences. Obviously, network TV, you don't have access, not going to do credibility, and it's certainly, you can call me out right now, it's not going to pay you $60K, which the other show would have paid.
Paradise?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I negotiated different than I think. It wasn't close to that. It was about a third of that.
Did you negotiate a guaranteed rate?
Yeah.
So it knew that it would keep you there for a little bit. Smart.
Or they did, or it wasn't my problem, and I wasn't afraid of going home. If you want to send me home day one, I don't care.
Still getting the paycheck.
In fact, given like what I wanted to do, that was like, at the time, like best case scenario. Show up for a day, get my paycheck, and you send me home night one. Great.
Actually, yeah. I mean,
at the time, my mindset was like, I was very reluctant to go into that world. I had a lot of like trepidations and fears, and I always kind of, I felt like up until that point, I couldn't win in that world.
Yeah. And I want to ask you about Post-Paradise. Before I do, though, you touched on the acting thing. And it's something that no one from Bachelor Nation has done effectively. And there's probably a million reasons why, because we're not actors. But do you think anyone can effectively go from Bachelor World to acting with the experience? And because you did act for a little bit. Like, how difficult is that world? You did?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about just that industry, a guy that knows nothing about it.
I mean, it's a tough grind. Well, if I ever make it, like I've had some small roles.
Yeah.
And the role I just played, I actually played myself, and that's the first time I ever agreed to do that. But it was well written, and I felt good about the decision, and like whatever.
How do you even get so you just said you did a film. How did you even get that opportunity?
I mean, I have a theatrical agent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do those like little cameos and shows and stuff, like, can people make a living off that?
No.
Yeah, hundreds of bucks you're making for a cameo?
I have no idea what I made.